I'll call to order this February 17th, 2026 Personnel and Policy meeting. Please rise for the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. May we have a roll call, please?
Jason Decker,
Present.
Mary Lee Hall,
Here.
Samantha Hall,
Here.
William Hall,
Here.
Jeremy Hash, Jennifer Henkel, Nathan Henkel,
Here.
Lisa Stoller, Joseph Wilson.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay. Item 2.01, procedure for public comment. I don't believe we have any public comment. So 202, we have no board discussion for public comment. So item 3.01, we will have our first reading of board policies for this current policy cycle. So just given that we have new members of the board and we haven't been through a policy cycle yet together, I wanted to just share a little update, as I usually do, just to kind of bring everybody on board as to how we get to where we are in our cycle. So as per our board policy review schedule, the policies discussed at this committee meeting were distributed to board members at the January board meeting. Tonight, I will bring each policy up for discussion and share the nature of the revision or the review. This is an opportunity for board members and the public to share input, but there is no voting action tonight. We will then review these policies and/or revisions at the board meeting on Thursday as a first read, and then move to a second read in March with a vote. Upon passage of the vote, the policies are final approved and effective. Again, since we have two new board members, I wanted to provide a little refresher on the purpose of the policies and how they are developed. School district policies guide the actions of the board, administration, staff, students, parents, and the public. The policy focuses on what is supposed to happen in the schools regarding educational programs, student achievement, staff accountability, district finances, facilities, community relations, and the organization of the school board itself. Effective policy ensures issues will be addressed consistently throughout the district and provide administrators with the direction they can follow. To implement the policy, administrative regulations, known as ARs, are developed by the administrative team and focus on how the policy will be enforced within the school district. The prompts for a policy creation or revision include PDE enacting a law, a school board director request, a legal challenge where PSBA recommends a revision, or an administrative assessment that the policy needs to be updated and/or combined. At this point in the meeting, I will go through the policies scheduled for review and ask for any feedback. So as I normally categorize them, we have 23 policies that are up for updating tonight. The first of those is policy 005, and that's on organization. This policy was last reviewed June 2025 to include the PSBA recommendations and revisions to the officers and appointments section of the policy to reflect a court ruling regarding removal of members of the board. So that's why it was updated in June. I brought it forth on this policy cycle to formalize the leadership selection process by requiring a nominating chair to solicit interest and distribute a standardized leadership prospectus to the board and public in advance of the December reorganization meeting. And the reason why I did this is we actually fell into a very interesting situation where our nominating chair left in October or November, right? October, November. And so then we didn't have anybody to fill that position. And so it felt like it was a little bit of a gap. And so I wanted to address that. So what I had put forth as far as a revision, if you open up the policy, I was looking to add the following section to the officers section, and I did, Sue, put a note in the comment of exactly what it is that I'm going to read, but I can share it with you afterwards anyway.
Okay.
So the revision that I was proposing on the second paragraph would just be to replace that. I'm suggesting the nominating chair appointed by the board no later than the October regular meeting, so that would change our timing, shall solicit interest from all board members regarding leadership roles. At least 7 days prior to the December reorganization meeting, the nominating chair shall distribute a leadership prospectus to all board members, and then at least 5 days prior to the reorganization meeting. So they should get the nomination 7 days, and then it should be given to the board 5 days prior to the reorganization meeting. And so what I was suggesting for what that prospectus would look like is for the specific offices of the president, the vice president, and the treasurer, it would be wonderful for the board to have the candidate name, right, who's up for that, a little bit about their biography, so a brief summary of the candidate's background, including their tenure on the board and relevant professional experience, a statement of intent, just explaining why they're seeking this particular role, and then if we could, maybe leadership goals, just a list of what that candidate is looking for in the upcoming term. Just so that way, when we have new board members that are on, if they haven't had the ability to meet and interface with some of these other board members, that they would have all that information to them. And then I further said this disclosure does not preclude additional nominations from being made from the floor during the organization meeting. And during the meeting, each nominee would be given the opportunity, if they so chose, to make a statement not to exceed 3 minutes. So I put forth that for any feedback or suggestions.
Is there any issue with the timing? You said in October?
Well, because Mr. Holly, that was his, so we didn't refill that position because I think it would have only been filled in December, so then we were out of luck with that.
I mean, he was there at the November meeting, so I suppose it could be pushed to November in order to be a little bit closer to the December reorg meeting. The other thing that I think could be an option is that it's the not any chair, or if there's an alternate individual that could be in that capacity that is. Now, the thing is, with the board, there's no individual who's guaranteed to be in that capacity or in any particular capacity after an election. Is it inappropriate that the superintendent would be the backup for that? That in the absence of a nominating chair, a holdover nominating chair, that the superintendent would receive nominations? Is there any?
I'm open to it, but I don't know, like our board.
Yeah, is there legal issues with that?
Yeah.
Well, you could probably also have a second and make sure that they were on separate election cycles.
That's what I was
That's
thinking, make
true.
sure they're on two
That's true,
different elections. I was
because
thinking,
some of the board is always guaranteed to be a holdover, so.
Right, then you wouldn't be without if you had a second and they were on separate.
So would we then select the alternate nominating, I guess, okay, so we could just have an alternate nominating chair defined. We can do that now as out of cycle, but normally in December, similar to how we have a vice chair of education,
Right.
there could be a vice chair of the
Well, we have
nominating
a
committee that
vice
would have to be
treasurer.
on a different cycle. Okay, is that?
Can we simplify it even more? Because the board president usually say if I'm absent, you would give my report for me. It's only a month. Would that be something that the board president would just fill the gap?
Well, again, the only issue there could be that in an election year, the board president might not be held over, so the outgoing board
Might be
president
cycling
might not
out.
be held over, huh?
The board president might be cycling out.
Yeah, he
You
might.
might have to have a
yeah.
new board president.
And the VP and the treasurer.
Right, right. But the idea of saying, okay, we're going to have a vice chair for the nominations committee who is required to be on a different election cycle would guarantee that that would never be vacant.
So we would just, when you would make those nominations in December, you would just make it for 2 instead of 1, and then we wouldn't have to
Yeah, you'd have a
move
chair,
the
you'd have a
cycle
chair
at
and a
all.
vice chair, and the
Okay.
vice chair would be required to be on a different cycle.
Okay.
So that,
Sue, do you need me to like give you that? Because I think unless we change anything, everything holds, except for we wouldn't need to change it in October or November. We would just add a second person.
yeah, let me take what you have and then we can
Okay.
send it back out to everybody and make sure we're good.
Okay.
Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think the suggestions are good on the packet. We might want to put a little bit of flexibility around that with what people will actually provide. And obviously, if somebody provides a bad packet, then they risk not being elected. But it seems very precise and prescriptive, so I don't know if we need to be that detailed on it. I also don't know enough to know whether that type of thing is usual and customary. That would be my biggest question, so.
I did look.
Okay, so other boards is pretty,
I looked at Central Bucks and probably like 3 or 4 different boards.
Okay.
Yeah.
and I mean, it could be, obviously, the packet is only ever a recommendation because you can be nominated from the floor.
Right.
You could say, here's my packet, and parts of it, you could do the parts that you think are interesting and not do them. And then again, you risk,
Yep.
if someone thinks, well, I think you should have filled this out, then yeah.
But doing it in November would get you post-election.
Yeah, we'd have to do it in November. You couldn't do it in October with the potential outcome of the
You
election.
wouldn't know yet.
You wouldn't know yet,
Yeah.
yeah.
But by the November board meeting, you should at least have an understanding of who's coming.
Yeah, but if there's a vice chair nominations, honestly, the nominations could be made, the nominations could be submitted to that person anytime up to the December reorg meeting.
Correct.
Whoever's the acting nominations chair, I mean, right, if I submit a packet, I guess what you're saying is it'd be nice if it could be circulated among the board. So, yeah, so the recommendation might be to submit those packets at least, say, a week before the reorganization meeting.
What about holdover nominees? Would the requirement be the same? So if Nathan's been president several times, would he put the same packet and information together as a new?
I mean, I think obviously we know his name, we know his qualifications, but I think like the leadership intent is really good. Like what you're thinking, like what is drawing you to want to do this for the next year?
Okay.
All right, well, I can provide any of that.
Quick question on that, just because it'll eventually come up.
Okay.
How much are those, would those be public records? Those packets of information?
I think so.
Okay.
I mean, do you see,
I mean, I'm just,
I'm not asking for
I'm just
addresses.
asking-
Yeah,
I
but
would
that's
think
public-
so.
You would think so?
I would think they would be rights knowable.
yeah, that's
I would
why,
think.
okay.
But that, if you wanted, I could ask Jeff, but I would think they would be.
No,
Well, I'm just
Would
thinking
it-
when you file your candidate paperwork, all of that is,
Public information.
yeah, okay.
Yeah, nobody's professional background is secret, nobody's
No.
service on the board is secret,
Yeah.
nothing she said is private, so.
No.
Okay.
okay,
Yeah, I just want to make sure we thought that through.
yeah.
Good.
Anything else? Okay, so moving on to policy 102. Okay, so this is on academic standards. This policy was last reviewed September 2014, and I'm sharing these things just because I want to be able to make it known that some of these are policies that haven't been reviewed in a while, and they've been doing a really good job of like trying to cycle those on so that we can review them. So this policy was last reviewed September 2014 and was included in this cycle per a PSBA recommendation. It is a mandated policy. The academic standards were updated to reflect the changes to the state standards for the 25-26 school year. Changes include new requirements for science, environment, ecology, technology, and engineering standards based on grade levels. Are there any, is there any discussion on that?
Would this be the place for the cursive instruction that was signed into law? Would that be,
I think that would fall under the authority, number one, English language arts, under the reading
Okay.
slash writing.
writing, yeah, okay.
I'm sorry,
I just-
what was it that you said though? That-
The cursive law that was just
okay.
signed in,
Right.
I didn't know if we needed to specifically spell that out here, or if it's implied with the writing.
So as an action, is that something that we would put in that policy for the next cycle? Would that need to be included in there?
Well, with the writing piece, that's all encompassing with writing, so if there are any changes with the cursive, Joe, as you mentioned, that would be included within that.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's a curriculum update more than anything.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it does say that the term academic standards encompass, that should say encompass, right, because it's plural. Academic standards. Pennsylvania core standards, state academic standards, and local academic standards. That would come under state academic standards, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I
So-
think,
Well, I'm not sure if it's standards or curriculum, that's,
do we need to say standards and curriculum requirements?
I don't, I don't think this would be the place to add the
Oh, you don't think-
curriculum.
Okay.
We have a separate, separate
Okay, 105,
policies
105.
provided, we're going to curriculum. 105.
But the cursive, that would fall under the state academic standards, I would think.
Oh. Yeah, it's in.
They're towards the end
That's
of
correct.
the academic standards, I guess, definition.
Sorry, it is singular because it's the term academic standard, so it's good. As is. Part of all the strike-throughs.
Any other comments to that one? Okay. All right, moving on to policy 105, curriculum development. This policy was last reviewed October 2018 and was included in this cycle for legal liability purposes. These are mandatory instructional requirements under the PA School Code and federal law, and they include, so this is, help me out, time where there would be instruction on these particular federal
Yes.
dates, holidays,
Yes,
yes.
holidays.
So I think you will all like September 17th-ish for Constitution Day. That is being put in. Francis Willard Day, William Penn Day, Bill of Rights Week, Free School Day, and Arbor Day. Any comments or questions to that one?
I just have one. The final line is, in addition, the board directs the superintendent to actively pursue state and federal aid in support of research activities. This doesn't have to be necessarily clarified in the policy. It would just be useful to know when that's referring to research activities, who's performing the research? Is that this state and federal organizations are performing research and we're collaborating with them and thus getting grants, or are we doing research, or is it a combination of the two? What is that intended to?
My interpretation is that could be a combination of the two. You know, if we're receiving information from this state or federal level related to them.
I read it as, if you want the grant money, here's what you have to do, and it would have to come back to the board for approval.
Yeah.
This is what we're doing.
But
Right.
but we're saying actively look into the, okay, I was just curious, but
Yeah.
yeah. Okay.
Okay. All right, moving forward to policy 109, library materials. This policy was last reviewed January 2011 and was included in this cycle update from a general philosophy of resource support to a more structured framework. The newer version introduces defined standards, parental controls, and collections maintenance guidelines. Any feedback or questions on this policy?
Ms. Hall, may I interject? In looking at this policy, we worked directly with Jeff Litz, who actually authored this policy for another district. It provides us more of a, policy and framework as we're looking at identifying not only the materials that we're going to be providing in our libraries, but also a library review committee that will meet to consistently review the materials that we're providing to our students.
Okay, I was going to ask if it had been reviewed by a solicitor, but the solicitor wrote
This
it,
is
so
actually,
that counts.
this is actually from him.
Okay,
It looked to me like his writing style more than PSBA, so I'm just
Yeah.
getting to know the difference.
any questions on that one?
Who would be a part of the committee for this policy?
Tell me what section are you under?
I don't see a reference to committee members as far as who would be
Yeah.
in control of that. Am I missing something? How many there would be? What would they encompass as far as teachers, paraprofessionals, parents?
Yeah, so there's
It's under challenge
it's on,
review committee.
Challenge procedures, 5 or more parents, guardians. Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
so at that point, Mary Lee, it's not a unilateral decision of one determining that a material may not be. So the committee would be a teacher, supervisor, school counselor, school librarian, principal, one district-wide administrator, which would primarily be the director of curriculum, as well as the assistant superintendent, who be part of that committee.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else? Okay. All right, moving on to the next policy, 109.1, instructional materials and presenter selection. So this policy was last reviewed October 2024 and was included in this cycle to be reviewed. And it covers items used for direct teaching, just to differentiate the instructional materials, presenter selection from library materials. It covers items used for direct teaching such as textbooks, classroom novels, and guest speakers. Any feedback to that? Anything you want to add to it?
Yes, Mrs. Aul, the
Okay.
one addition that we did add under the presenters, number 4, that a member of the vetting process may abstain due to personal reasons and or conflict of interest. We thought that would be a provision to put into this, was reviewed by Jeff Litz, and he thought that would be a good addition to the policy.
Okay. Anything else? Okay.
Just
Alright.
curious, is there a specific issue that led to that addition, or is that just anticipating a potential future issue?
I think it's more in anticipating future issues. I think if there is a potential conflict, because we do have members that could be part of that committee that live in the community, that might have direct contact with an individual. That way, the presenter can still be vetted and passed, as opposed to having 5 that were part of it. We may only have 4 in that part. So it still indicates that the speaker will be approved as long as the other members of the vetting process approve the speaker.
Yeah, so it says a member of the vetting process may abstain, and has the solicitor clarified that that means 1? A member means 1, right?
A member. But in this, I think if we would have a concern where we may have a conflict, maybe it could be a teacher, they could always have another teacher from that department that could be the one that's submitting that form to the building principal.
Anything else? Did you have any other questions, Mr. Decker?
I'm good.
Okay, you look like you were maybe pondering.
Nope.
Okay. All right, moving on to policy 112, which is guidance counseling. This policy was last reviewed October 2006 and was added to this cycle by the board. The updates to this policy focus on aligning with Pennsylvania's Chapter 339 requirements and redefining a specific language used to describe the guidance counselor's role. Any questions or feedback to this?
Yeah, a bit. So the policy, it looks like there were several revisions made in the purpose section, and that was basically selected from a menu of the PSBA provided options. I am good with items 1 through 5. Item 6, I think there are certain interpretations of that one that could be viewed as potentially infringing on the position of parents, maybe, just depending on how it's interpreted. So I tend to leave that one out. And then when we get down to guidelines, the policy we have now, when I looked at that, it's kind of a mess down there, in that it's got a hodgepodge of a bunch of different psychological services related responsibilities. And then it has responsibilities for counselors at the middle school level that are kind of different and partially overlapping and partially not overlapping with the high school counselors. And there doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason that I can discern for why the lists are what they are. Whereas the PSBA policy that we have has a nice, concise list of guidelines that we can choose from, kind of a menu there of guidelines we can choose from where, and from that, I would want to include 4 and 5. So be coordinated with services provided by locally available social and human services agencies is number 4. I'd include number 5, cooperate with parents or guardians and address their concerns regarding the development of their child. And then possibly 6 and 8, though I'm open to discussion on those. Provide means for sharing information among appropriate staff members in the best interest of the student. And then establish a referral system that utilizes resources offered by the school and community, guards the privacy of the student, and monitors the effectiveness of such referrals. So those would be the menu options I would select. If anybody else has different options they would select. The other thing that I would do is, under purpose, I forgot to mention this, I would probably push number 4 up to the top, because I think that 4 is probably the most, which is aid students in recognizing options and making choices in vocational, academic, educational planning, I think should be number 1 on that list. Any discussion?
So are you looking to remove all of the guidelines from 1 to 14 and replace them with PSBA?
Yeah, I'm basically saying the guidelines section of our current policy, it has a list that goes to 8, it has a list that goes to 14, a list that goes to 9, a list that goes to 15. Those lists to me seem very much like, they look like the result of a brainstorming session. And this was last revised in 2006, so I'm probably not,
Sure,
we probably don't even know who did this, but.
But they are divided by middle school counselor as opposed to high school counselor.
They are, but it's not clear why they are what they are. So for example, I don't know why, so the high school counselor says, be responsible to the high school principal. There's no corresponding similar item under middle school counselor. There's one kind of like it, which is perform other duties assigned by the principal, which also, to me, that's way too vague. And so when you just look at this, some of these are fine, but I think it's a massive list. And it would be better to have it be more concise and focused. And I think what PSBA has provided is a nice list of options, at least to begin from. If there are things that someone looks at and says, well, this is missing from that list, then fine. But I think the list that's there is just, it's way too much to deal with for anyone.
A wide range. It seems like maybe some of it was taken from maybe the job duties within that description.
Maybe,
Just
yeah.
transferred over rather than
Yeah,
generalized
it
PSBA.
became, I think it became more like a job description, which this policy should not be. It should be a 10,000 foot, what's the focus? So I want
do
to,
like, though, that there is a little bit of a differentiation, because I think practically speaking, as a parent, when you think about a guidance counselor, when your children are in elementary school, it serves a purpose, middle school purpose, and definitely high school, it is very purpose with career, and education, which you wouldn't have. So I do like that there is some differentiation to that, but I totally see your point that there's not really uniformity in the way that they kind of flow down.
And I think the policy would allow differentiation on, if we adopted the options from the PSBA policy, that would allow differentiation, but it wouldn't, lay it out ironclad in policy.
And I'm sorry, Dr. Bryson, before I jumped in before you got a chance to speak.
yeah, no problem. I'd also change guidance counseling and school counseling. Because even PSBA's version is older than the new terminology. If I heard you right, you could potentially adopt PSBA's version of the policy, move it to school counseling. You are suggesting, Nathan, not including item 6 in the first proposed section?
Under purpose, yeah.
Or purpose, excuse me, and then guidelines.
I liked 4 and 5 without any reservation. With 6 and 8, I think they're fine. Yeah, honestly, 6, I don't really see that there would be any problem with that. And I think 8's fine as well, but honestly, I'm interested to hear about any of these if there are any concerns with any of them. Or if there's any that you feel like should be added, or anything that's either here that should be added or or anything that you have of your own that should be added.
I mean, number 8, I kind of want a example of what that actually looks like, because I'm trying to picture it in my head.
Do you mean the established referral system?
No, the public relations program by which proper contact.
Oh, wait, that's,
Oh.
Are you
that's the
on
old, that's the old
the old
policy.
policy?
Yeah, click on the next
Oh,
one. Yeah, yes, I didn't,
Trying to.
yes, that number 8,
All
I
right,
looked at,
okay.
and that was one of the ones
Okay,
that I was
fine,
like,
great. Okay. Okay,
yeah.
sorry.
No, no, you're good.
I'm jumping back and forth
I agree
between the
with you
two
about
of them,
this.
and I was like, wait, well, there's like 8 number 8s.
I agree with you 100% about that number.
I was having trouble figuring out which 80 was
Yeah.
talking.
Yes,
about.
yes, sorry. Go to the one that has the curly braces with the menu options.
PSBA
It's-
policy
It's
guide.
way shorter.
Which also may be why the policy is a
PSBA
little,
policy guide.
it jumps around so much.
Oh,
As
yeah.
it stands. It really does. It's all over the place.
Nathan, if I can come back to you then on the PSBA
Go to
school
policy.
counseling one,
Go to
under the guidelines,
Yes.
the ones that
Show you all of
you
them
were
here, so you wanna-
My recommendation is 4, 5, 6, and 8.
Okay,
4,
so now when you go
5,
through,
6, 8.
yep, the first
Okay.
one, like, this is what.
Do you have
PSBA
issues with the other
standard is.
numbers?
Okay.
But then the other one.
I,
if you scroll
I don't
through
like
this-
things that are open to
Yeah.
very broad
Because it was-
interpretation.
I'm like,
Sometimes,
you don't
so,
understand.
and that they're not like, it's not a prohibition on those things, but I want to focus on the things that we want to, that I'd like to foster. I mean, you can have a list of everything that a person could do that's good, but that gets to be too much. You should say, oh, here are the things that I really want you to focus on doing. And to not have it there is not a prohibition on that thing if it's appropriate to the job. But I think policy should indicate areas of focus. That's the main thing.
And that was really your issue with 6 under purpose too, right? Was the broadness of it.
Yeah, yeah.
I was
It's-
trying to redeem it in my mind and slightly modify it to save it, and I couldn't do it. It's just so broad.
Yeah, and it opens itself to interpretations that could potentially, to me, could potentially conflict with number 5 under guidelines.
And then lastly, in purpose, remove number 6.
Yes, and then move
number
forward.
4 to
to-
number 1,
Yeah.
and then renumber
Yeah,
2, 3, and 4. Okay, got it.
Mr. Bryson, what do you think as an educator?
As an educator, I think, I don't have a problem focusing on certain things. I mean, they're going to have a job description that goes far more in detail. You know, if we look at help students learn to make their own decisions and solve problems independently. Coming off of a school counselor role, I'd say that absolutely is a role, is you want to create independence in kids. They go out into the real world and solve problems. But does it appear or sound like the school counselor is pushing the student away? You know, this is not my problem, this is your problem, solve it. But I think many of them are subject for interpretation of those that are reading it. But I don't have any real heartburn over any of them, if you wanted to include them all.
Okay, so you've got what we've just talked about so far.
I got it.
You got it.
I
Okay.
got it.
All right. Anything else on that one? All right. Moving on to policy 123, interscholastic athletics. This policy was last reviewed March 2021 and was added to the cycle by PSBA for legal liability purposes. The revisions update the district sports regulations by aligning them with current state standards and legal precedents. Any feedback on this one?
Just one. The line that says the board adopts the eligibility standards set by the Constitution and bylaws of the Pennsylvania Interscholastic Athletic Association. I think because those are not that's not a body that has legal authority over us. So we are choosing to coordinate and work with them. I would like to add something along the lines of, in case of any contradiction between these and local policy shall prevail.
Local policy meaning our policy.
Yes.
So just to be
Can you
clear,
read
that
that from
follows.
Yes, yes. Let's see. In case of any contradiction between these, which refers to the Constitution and bylaws of the PIAA, and local policy shall prevail.
Because it's not like we're monitoring when they're making changes.
Yeah, and if they make a change that we say, no, we're not doing that,
I
then,
mean, they kind of do. They come to us through PSBA when they make changes, right? Because that's why
yeah.
this came in.
But if they make a change that we object to.
Oh, sure,
Yeah,
yes.
then,
No, I
then
totally
we're saying
understand.
we're doing what we're doing, and
Well, you want to be cautious because that also, if you're not meeting their eligibility standards, then you potentially have teams that are no longer eligible for playoffs after your in-season program.
so I would hope that there wouldn't be contradictions.
Our standards are typically higher than their eligibility standards, so we go above and beyond that, typically.
Which I think even
Cautious.
that is a matter where it's helpful to clarify. If our standards are higher than their eligibility standards, then we're not, that isn't necessarily a conflict, but a person could read it as a conflict that, look, this person's eligible.
Right.
Well, but we have higher, and that may, in that case, PIAA might say, that's fine, that's compatible. But I don't want to cede our own
Right.
control over our own programs to them.
Any other changes? Okay, we have that. All right. Okay, moving on to policy 125, adult education. This policy was reviewed in October 2025 and included in this policy cycle by administration to include updates that are primarily structural about how the program is staffed and managed. Any feedback to this policy? Okay. Moving on to policy 209.2, diabetes management. This policy was reviewed October 2017, is included in this cycle for legal liability purposes. Starting with this school year, 2025-2026, the district must formally provide type 1 diabetes fact sheets developed by the Pennsylvania Department of Health to specific groups of parents. Any questions or feedback on that policy? Okay. All right, moving forward to policy 225, interviewing students in school. This was a locally created policy and was recommended for review by administration. It was last reviewed in August 1992. The updates to the interviewing the students in school policy clarify the district's custodial control and formalize the process for when non-district personnel want to speak with a child. I feel like somebody had feedback to this. Nathan?
Yeah, so with this one, really, the main feedback I have is I think that in the process of striking through old language and adding new language, that some of the grammar has been chopped up pretty badly. So, let me find it. So the paragraph, if the parents and/or legal guardian are notified but do not wish to be present during the course of interview or questioning of their child by non-district personnel, it seems like there should be an interview. The superintendent, assistant superintendent, a principal or designate, I think that should be designee, shall determine the reasonableness of proceeding with the student interview as the situation based upon the particular circumstances. That sentence doesn't seem to work grammatically, and there are a number of
Yeah, there's typos in
issues
here.
throughout. So this one, I think, I didn't see anything that was glaring in terms of being a problem, other than I think this one just needs a grammar review and spelling review. And I understand how it could happen with, to chop it up, delete this, put this in, you're gonna lose articles, it's a hard thing to do, it can be.
So just a note for it, just to go through, just to read. Okay,
Quick question on that. There's parents and/or legal guardians shall be provided with a reasonable opportunity. Well, sorry, it's two reasonables. To be present when I think, is there a time limit on that? You know, we haven't defined what reasonable time is here, just to protect ourselves. Like, well, we thought 15 minutes was reasonable. Well, no, 3 hours is reasonable. I'm just trying to,
Might kick that one to Jeff.
that might be a Jeff question.
Yeah, something like a not to be less than, however many hours or whatever.
Part of the challenge too is the actual context of what the interview is about.
Yes.
Well, yes.
Yeah,
So that change is reasonable.
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
that's what Jeff's going to bring back is,
okay.
yeah, obviously we want to give them time. But if they show up and there's an hour left of school, how much time is sufficient?
Yeah, I don't know. See if he has a
Yeah.
recommendation for how best to address that.
Typically, I've been doing this one for a while, we typically get a hold of somebody fairly quickly, even if we go to emergency contacts and then they supersede. But we'll check with Jeff.
Yeah.
this one was locally created. Do they have a PSBA alternative, or is there a
No.
reason? You probably
They're
anticipated
separate
asking.
yeah, they were separated at one time. We
Right.
never brought them back together.
Okay,
Well, and if I recall, we reviewed this in a previous cycle, and we were going to delete the entire thing, and my concern was that the PSBA policy did not seem to spell out some of the same protections that exist in this policy.
so this was stronger.
So I don't have a problem with attempting to, at some point, maybe not this cycle, maybe next cycle, attempting to pull this in, although that may be more difficult because then we have a heavily amended PSBA policy. So I don't know. I like having the additional explicit protections that this provides, but that does create a bit of a
The
maintenance
handbook
burden.
refers to this policy, correct, for the students to sign, so that they understand what happens in a situation where they need to be interviewed. So we need to have something there, do we not?
I wouldn't say that. I mean, typically, this is an elementary student where children and youth show up and want to interview. That's generally, and they know the process now, most of them.
Yeah.
So it doesn't create too many headaches, yeah. But we've had situations where it's a guardian ad litem, there's a foster parent, there's multiple adults involved with the individual child. And that does make it challenging. But often that situation, that's where we would get on the phone with Jeff and say, this is the detail of this particular situation, what can or can't we do?
It also probably would be good to have Jeff review, because I see paragraphs like the paragraph that spells out the requirement for, or the prohibition on doing it without prior consent, but that includes exceptions for when it's an investigation by a county public welfare agency or otherwise permitted by law, court, or court order. We don't have that language in the next paragraph concerning notification, but we might have to, because we might be prohibited by that agency from providing notification. And so that's where, again, I think maybe Jeff could review it, and hopefully, instead of repeating that 3 or 4 times, you can submit the language so that it's there once and refers to the prior several stipulations.
Okay. Moving on. Policy 317, conduct disciplinary procedures. This policy was last reviewed October 2025 and included in this cycle per PSBA for revision to reference code of professional practice and conduct for educators. The updates focus on due process, professional standards, and new state-level notification systems. Any questions or feedback to this one? Okay. Moving on to policy 317.1, educator misconduct. This policy is recommended by PSBA with minor terminology changes regarding Title IX sexual harassment. It is recommended for legal liability purposes. Any feedback to that? All right. Okay, policy 320, freedom of speech in non-school settings. This policy was last reviewed April 2023 and included in this cycle per PSBA for their updates. The updates to this policy just modernize the balancing act between an employee's First Amendment rights and the district's operational needs. Any feedback to this policy?
One item. So where it says the board acknowledges the right of administrative, professional, and support employees, this is getting into civics, but the board acknowledges the right of administrative, professional, and support employees as private citizens in a democratic society to speak on issues of public concern. I would like to change democratic society to republic because in fact it is the fact that we are a constitutional republic that actually protects the right to speech. Democracy is actually a danger to the right to speech because in a pure democracy, the right to speech can be withdrawn at the whim of a bare majority. So I'd like to see that say a republic, because that's what's actually providing the protection of that right.
Tell me again where that was listed under.
It's the first
Authority,
paragraph.
First
Oh.
paragraph.
Yeah, where it
The
says,
SBA one though, right? Not the first one.
the PSBA one,
It's under
Where
authority.
I see.
yeah, it's under authority, the
Democratic.
first paragraph under authority. Yeah, not the one that's being retired, yeah.
So would you have it read in a Republican
Yes.
society?
In a
small
republic.
R, small R Republican society?
Or just a republic.
Okay. Yeah, in a republic probably reads better.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Anything else? All right. Okay. Policy 607, tuition income. This policy was last reviewed March 2000 and included on this policy cycle per PSB updates. The changes align with adopting PSBA language. Sue, I don't know if with any of these, if anything, they seem to all very sort of technical. I don't know if there's anything else that you wanted to add to it. Okay. Anything with 607?
Yeah, and the only thing I'll point is, we typically don't have tuition students in the district. This would only apply in the case of like a special needs situation where we would, and we do that often, where a special needs student would come here or our child would go there, kind of thing. But we typically don't do tuition here.
Okay. Policy 612, purchases not budgeted. This policy was last reviewed August 1992 and included on this policy cycle per PSB updates. It just primarily updates administrative titles and formalizes spending limits for tighter fiscal control. Any questions on that one?
I have one. So down under guidelines, where it says in the event of emergency, which exists whenever the time required for the board to act in accordance with regular procedures would endanger life or property or threaten continuance of existing school classes, a purchase order, and then there's a strike through up to the amount of blank may be authorized by the superintendent. So obviously, there's a version of this wherein the amount is limited. There's this kind of balance where I don't like a blank check, but at the same time, I kind of understand where we're talking about an emergency that is threatening life or property.
So I can give you an example.
Yeah.
The only one we've ever had is when the sprinkler heads froze and hundreds of thousands of gallons of water dumped into the high school. And we had to bring in the folks to air it out and do all the air quality control and all that. That's the only emergency. And again, the reason why we didn't put a dollar amount in there is I don't know what dollar amount would even, I mean, that was obviously a lot of it was covered by insurance, but we literally within a half an hour were on the phone with people getting them in here, which we had to do to preserve the property. So That's why, again, as I look at it, I agree, I don't like blank checks, but I have no idea what number you could put in there. And
Right.
obviously, we'd be on the phone to, Dr. Bryson and the rest of us would be on the phone to the board, letting them know if something like that would happen.
Yeah, I understand that. So I guess what I would say is, I understand why that could be necessary. What I would suggest as kind of a compromise between those interests is that we work to shore up the notification language. So right now, it's basically saying if expenses need to be made before the board could act, then just do it. Well, what if the expenses what if they are something that can wait a couple days, but they can't wait until the next board meeting, and they probably can't wait for us to call a special meeting? Well, there could be at least notification where board president could be notified. I would make sure the rest of the board is informed. And so basically that, I don't know exactly what language I want to use, but it'd be nice to shore up the notification requirements, because right now it's just reported to the board at the next meeting, and I think we can do better than that. And I think you do. You come to me with stuff, but I think we're setting policy for the future for whoever may be sitting in that chair, and I think the policy should be as good as it can be. So I think upping the notification effort there would be a nice middle ground. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so can I say it back to you? So basically, you're thinking we add another sentence onto that paragraph that says, the board will be notified as soon as practical, once the emergency has been taken care of, or basically you have to stop the emergency first, and then we're gonna tell you right after that. So I'll think of some language.
Yeah, if the emergency is such that it would not permit prior board notification, then the superintendent, and this is why I'm not sure what language I want exactly, but
Okay.
then the superintendent may act and notify the board as soon as practicable afterwards. If the emergency is such that the urgency does not preclude prior board notification, then prior board notification should be made, and then the emergency dealt with as, in a timely manner in order to avoid further damage or expense. Something along those lines.
If notification is a phone call, is there a scenario you can think of where notification could not be made within 24 hours?
I don't want Bob to worry about calling me if they're doing with the sprinkler system. I want him to be calling the sprinkler people. So I think in situations where there's water flowing into the building, he should not be calling me until he's got the whoever on the phone who can deal with that. But then, yeah, as soon as you have a moment to breathe, give me a phone call. But if it's something that can be handled in the next week, then yeah, reach out to me and let me know, hey, I'm gonna have to do this. I think we need to do this, because that also gives the possibility, let's say it's a week or 2 weeks, that gives the possibility of calling a special meeting for the board to come in and say, okay, we know we need to do something. We'd maybe like to redirect a little bit and do this thing instead, or something along those lines. If the urgency is so great that it can't wait till the next board meeting, but maybe there would be the possibility for the board to act in an emergency fashion. I don't know if that's already covered here, and that's why I said I don't know exactly what language I want. If you want to kind of work with that, come up with something, but mostly I think around the notification piece.
Okay. Moving on, policy 614, payroll authorization. This policy was last reviewed August 1992 and included on this cycle per PSBA updates. The changes align with adopting PSBA language. Any feedback on this one?
Why did we change shall to may? Just curious, in terms of including these pieces of information. Is there a reason that including them would be a?
The only thing I can think of is that that's what was in the PSBA template.
Yeah, it is there that way in the PSBA template. I'm just curious why there would, if there's ever be a case where we would not want to include this information. It all seems relevant and useful to have potentially. But yeah, look it over and let me know,
Okay.
are there any of those items where you're like, yeah, sometimes we wouldn't be able to give that?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing, we don't put the budget category to which the wages are to be charged. Like, we don't ever put that on the board agenda. So if I'm looking at this paragraph, we don't put all of those items on the board agenda for you each time.
Okay, so I guess I'd ask, what's the view on this? Do we think that whatever is going to be the standard list should be a required list? And then the next question would be, what should be on that list of the kind of menu of options? It might be easier to look at the policy guide there, because it gives you kind of the menu. Anyone have thoughts? I guess we could say if including the budget category is easy, I mean, it seems like all these things should be possible to include, and it seems harmless to include it if it's easy. If there are any of these that don't seem easy, then we can maybe take those off, but then change language to shall. So if you want to review it and say, okay, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, at this point, I think if we want to change it to shall or will, then let's just take the budget category off, and then it'll be what we give each time.
Okay. Is everyone good with that?
Can you just repeat that?
So, yeah, so it's optional to have the budget category. So my thought is, if we want to change it to shall, then I would just remove the budget category, because that would be cumbersome for our staff with all the supplementals and everything to put a budget category each time.
Yeah, and of course, that wouldn't preclude you from including it, but it just, when everything went to May, I'm like, well, you could just hire this person, not that you would ever do this, but hire so-and-so to do stuff. Seems like it'd be good to have the position classification, that sort of thing.
Okay. All
So
right.
you'd like to change that in the next paragraph also? Is that, because there's two paragraphs.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I mean, I think shall is good because, again, some of this information just seems like, yeah, absolutely, you'd want to have that. The name of the individual, the position title. Currently, position title is one of them, rate of pay. That's all stuff that I think we do want to see.
Okay.
So let's say shall for the stuff that we definitely want to see, and then if there's other stuff you want to include for our benefit, then of course you can include it. There's nothing that would ever prevent you. It doesn't even need to be in policy. To me, a policy that says may, like, you don't need it.
All right. Moving to policy 616, payment of claims. This policy was last reviewed March 2022. I didn't see any red line changes in this one, so I'm not sure what the scope of the change was.
Which one are you on? 615?
Yes,
616.
616,
616.
yeah.
That one actually does not, that was just for review and there were no changes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that one doesn't have any changes.
I guess we don't have any feedback to new changes. Okay. All right,
Yeah,
policy.
Quick question. on
Okay.
that. Quick
You did
question.
that just to do it.
Yeah, no, so in the case of this, where, okay, it's up for review, do we update the last revised date to be 2026?
There is
Even
actually,
if we didn't make any change?
there's a function that we can hit that shows last reviewed. So there's last approved, and then there's last revised. So actually, if you look at 616, it does show you,
It was revised.
there's actually a last reviewed. That one says last revised, but there isn't last reviewed too, that we can go into board docs and show that it was reviewed, but not necessarily any changes made.
That would
Yeah,
probably
that would
be
be
useful to
helpful.
have.
Yeah, that'd be, yeah.
Good point, thank you. All right. Policy 617, petty cash. This policy was last reviewed August 1992 and included on this policy cycle for PSB updates. It looks like the changes just strengthen our internal controls. I don't know if there's anything more with that. All right. Okay, we're moving out of money and going to service animals. Policy 718, service animals in school. This policy was last reviewed April 2015 and included on this policy cycle per PSBA updates. The changes align the district with stricter ADA interpretations and clarify just the general access and special education with the IEP or 504 requirements. Any updates with this or questions or feedback? All right. Okay. Policy 815.1, acceptable use of Gen AI in education. The board has asked for this to be on review for every cycle, just due to the changing nature of AI. Any comments or feedback on this? I do have some, but I wanted to open it up to anybody else. Okay. So the Moms for Liberty released a policy guide for schools. And because they are part of the White House's Council on AI, I took a look at it on the White House Task Force on AI in Education. I took a look at it, and I'm bringing up things that I noted as gaps. I'm not suggesting that I want to include them. I'm still kind of thinking on them a little bit, and I actually would really like Mr. Litz's feedback on some of these things. The things that I was looking at were the gap areas. And so on the policy, the Moms for Liberty policy includes very specific language on not using AI for social emotional learning in psychological profiling, mental health services. Moms for Liberty argues that AI should not monitor a child's worldview or emotional state. So a potential language that we could include if we feel that this is something that we would want to address in our policy, and again, this is just a draft. The district strictly prohibits the use of generative AI for social emotional learning, psychological profiling, mental health screenings, or any form of behavioral monitoring. AI systems shall not be used to analyze, assess, or influence a student's emotional state, personal values, or worldview, and it could come under prohibited use of generative AI as a new bullet. Any thoughts? Again, I'm just throwing it out there.
So I could see generative AI being a useful tool for admin on identifying risk within the student population. And it can actually potentially be a lot more effective than human intelligence. And I worry that a policy like that might prevent that type of use case. Dr. Bryson, any thoughts?
Yeah, I think my headspace was more in the sense of how do I determine whether AI contributed to a young person's worldview? If it's providing information, et cetera, that student digests and thinks about something differently. I think if they're attempting to get out, do I believe we're in a place where AI should be utilized as a school counselor? No.
Right.
How we word it, devil's in the detail.
Yeah, I think maybe a focus, so one, I think that potentially the use case that Mr. Decker mentioned is maybe falls better under predictive AI, forecasting outcomes using data patterns, and that's not under the same restrictions as generative AI. But I also think that maybe focusing on the sort of direct student interaction is perhaps where we want to focus this. no, we should not have the students interacting with AI at this time to figure out how they should share with their peers, or, or how they should treat their friends, in order to make good friends.
There was something in the language that led me to think that maybe some of those predictive use cases.
Might be included,
Yeah.
yeah. I guess, I don't have any objection to some version of that being in here, and I think having Mr. Litz review it, but I do like some clear prohibitions on the use, especially when it gets to students. I will say that I think our current policy kind of addresses that to some extent, and it says,
Ethical considerations, is that what you're thinking,
what,
in that area?
sorry?
Language is ethical.
Under
No,
ethical
No,
considerations,
yeah.
I see
It was
some
more-
generalities, which we need to still stay at the 10,000 feet view, right?
Well, so the part that I thought was protective against the idea of, say, using an AI as a school counselor would be this sentence: "The board directs the administration to limit the use of generative AI to those tools that are necessary for curriculum implementation." To me, that says we're going to be very focused to the extent, and like, right now, we don't have any generative AI tools that are directly used by students, but when we do, the idea here is, right now, this policy only allows the use of those that are necessary for curriculum implementation. Now, if the term curriculum implementation, I think it would be nice to have some clarification on exactly what that term means, on what exactly that term is understood to mean. Maybe that would be useful. But to me, that says it's related to teaching, and even there, we have a lot of restrictions on how we're using it for teaching, but we're only using it where it enhances curriculum. Is that your interpretation? It enhances the delivery of curriculum?
Yeah.
So there would be no cause for a school counselor to have a student interacting with a chatbot for social or emotional purposes. That would be, to me, that would violate that sentence, yes?
Well, and that felt like the spirit of what you
Yeah.
were reading is exactly what you just articulated, that it's about the student interacting with it.
Yeah.
And the purpose, which this says, for curriculum implementation. To me, if you're going to a guidance counselor about some problem you're having with another student, that's not curriculum. That's, we're trying to keep the school environment where everybody is being respectful and getting along. That's not curriculum, though. That's important. That environment is important for being able to teach, but that's not curriculum implementation. That said, again, that doesn't mean that I don't want some language that has some specific prohibitions about those things, because I think that could be helpful, even if you've already said, this isn't for anything but curriculum implementation, and also, by the way, don't use it for those.
So I can modify this and then maybe run it past you and then forward it back on, because I feel like it needs a little bit of wordsmithing that,
Sure, yeah, and I think, like you said, having Mr. Litz review it would
Yeah,
probably be a good
right.
step in all of that.
okay. The second thing that I noted is somewhat related. First, we're talking about the social emotional learning. This is a little bit more broad. It's just the viewpoint on neutrality and profiling. So the Moms for Liberty policy explicitly prohibits AI systems that profile students based on political, religious, or personal values. It warns against platforms that shape a child's worldview, so kind of talking about that a little bit. In our policy, we talk about bias in the general, but not really so much protection for personal or political beliefs. So potentially, draft language could read something like, the district shall not implement or authorize any generative AI system designed to profile students based on political, religious, or personal values. AI tools must remain viewpoint neutral and shall not be used to direct students towards specific ideological or social beliefs.
Yeah, and I think when you say shall not be used to direct students toward, that is probably easier to work with than then the idea that it can't contribute to
Right,
a
right.
student developing a certain philosophy, because information, we develop our philosophies of life based on the information we receive, and so that would, if, I'd have to hear it again to see if that was an actual problem with the first one, but this one, that sounds open enough that, this one doesn't sound like it would have any problem to me, and I think have Jeff review this one, and I think that one sounded okay to me.
And just where it would go is add this to the ethical considerations section immediately following the
The
paragraph.
first
on
paragraph
discrimination.
there might overlap a little bit with it. We may want to try and figure out where that,
Combine
the
it a
sweet
little
spot
Mm-hmm.
is.
The first paragraph under ethical considerations.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, because it specifically references against, prohibitions against discrimination, harassment, bullying, bias, and access to sexually explicit materials.
Yeah.
So I think it definitely could fit in, could be merged in there cleanly.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else on that?
Good points though, Sam.
Yeah, that was great.
Okay,
There
and,
still is a typo in here.
oh,
You guys and
Under
your typos. This is just a
authority.
draft.
No, this is the one that's live right now. Authority, second paragraph, end user agreements and is one word when it should be two. Agreements and,
wait, under authority, which paragraph?
authority, second paragraph,
Second paragraph.
first line.
Oh, oh, yeah.
Sorry, it's too many years in advertising.
Okay.
That I,
Oh,
did
and-
everything.
Well, wait, we were saying 12 and under and only?
No, I'm talking about the typo right here, agreements and, there's no space between.
Oh, the no space, okay, yeah,
That's all,
yeah, okay,
that's all, no text change.
I see.
There's no such
Add
thing
a
as
space.
agreements and.
Agreement and, okay, yes.
Okay. Just two other areas. So the next area, the Moms for Liberty policy was very specific, and I do believe that we cover this, but maybe perhaps not as strongly as they do, about never replacing the teacher in core instruction. And so our policy mentions teachers, but the Moms for Liberty policy is a little bit stronger in saying that they never assume the role of authority or replace human grading. So potential draft language would be generative AI shall serve only as a supplemental resource and must never replace the teacher in core instruction. AI shall not be used to provide final grades or authoritative feedback on student work. Human educators must retain sole responsibility for all evaluative and instructional decisions. And it would go under the AI-generated content verification section to strengthen the oversight requirement. You want me to read it again? I see you're like looking for where it is.
Yeah, let me read the
Yeah.
paragraph we have, and then, yeah, go ahead and read it. Let me just read this
Okay.
real quick. Okay.
Okay, you want me to read it again?
Mhm.
Okay. Generative AI shall serve only as a supplemental resource and must never replace the teacher in core instruction. AI shall not be used to provide final grades or authoritative feedback on student work. Human educators must retain sole responsibility for all evaluative and instructional decisions.
I don't think that, I mean, there's definitely some overlap with what we have, but
Yeah.
it
But I
does seem
think-
like stronger language.
So maybe
Yeah.
just kind of look at it just for the
Yeah, I
strengthening
think,
lines.
yeah, maybe that goes right after that paragraph, like you said. I think
Okay.
that's the right place for it.
Did you have anything else, Mr. Wilson?
Nope,
Okay.
I was just agreeing with you. And you?
All right. And then this is really, I don't have a suggestion for it. It's just to sort of put out there. So the Moms for Liberty legislative framework suggests revoking funding or opening the district to legal action for non-compliance with parental rights regarding AI. So one of the things that I was looking at is that in our policy, we talk about consequences for students and staff not following our policy, but not necessarily any district level accountability to parents if the policy is violated. So again, I don't even have anything, I'm just asking, is that something that we feel we need to think about? Because it's a gap.
I mean, I suppose all of our policies, there's the potential for liability for not following them, right? I mean, any parent can have a claim against us if we have a policy and we're not following it. Yeah.
Okay. And then I have one other thing, but it is not related to Moms for Liberty. Actually, this was feedback that I got from somebody else that's not in the district, but that's a mom that's going through this in another district. And so it said that our policy implies that only generative AI that can be used is approved through the policy, but that assumes open access to generative AI tools does not exist. Unless we have specific processes in place, tools like ChatGPT, Gemini, Copilot, and Bing Creator are accessible on the open web. I do not know the answer to this, and so I'm asking the AI committee. There's nothing in our policy that require that these are blocked, but do we already block them? I don't know the answer to that.
ChatGPT is.
The answer is
blocked.
yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, then.
No, I mean, that's a
Yeah, just
definitive
consider-
answer. That was everything that I had for the AI policy. Anything else? All right.
One more question. Is there the potential that anything could get through, that a student would be able to access? Because, or anyone else for that matter, all these things are changing. You can be hacked, someone can get access without even,
So we pay good money for our filters, but there is always the possibility that kids can gain access to it. And you walk out the door and they have free access to all these.
If they really want it, they'll get it at home.
Yeah, I mean, there's these things, if they're not, if I'm not on the school's network, I assume the network is filtering this, right?
Would
So-
you have an idea if there was a violation? Is there an alert that would come through to the technical team?
No, because it would be filtered so the alert would be, the system was alerted that there was access to some site, but that means that that system knew that that site was
Then it would have filtered
inappropriate.
it.
Then it would have filtered it. So typically, we would find out through students that there was access being gained to something that the filter system still had not identified. I don't know, Greg, if you have anything to add since you're here with us.
Pretty much one point that, we block what we can, and the content filters, we work closely with them, they're constantly putting in new catches to be able to block AI wherever they possibly can, and then as new ones pop up, we're throwing them into the content filter as well. Well, like Dr. Bryson said, if a student finds a way to get around it, we typically find out from the student population, and surprisingly, we find out pretty quick. And then when we find out what they did, how they got around it, we typically talk to the students, and they're pretty open and honest with how they did it, and we can work to block that method as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else on generative AI? All right. We are almost finished. Policy 918, Title I, Parent and Family Engagement. This policy was last reviewed March 2020 and added per PSBA updates. The updates do not change the core policy language, but they introduce new documentation and structural requirements to comply with federal Title I monitoring. These updates are for legal liability purposes. Anything to that? Okay.
Do you have 804 on your list? It is here, and it does have changes.
Oh, did I miss it?
Yeah,
I
you
might
might
have
have
missed it.
skipped that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a
I
long
did.
list.
I'm so excited to get to all the
Long list,
AI
yeah.
stuff. Okay, I got that
Come
one.
back around the horn on it. Sometimes you do in sections.
Yes. Policy 804, school schedule day. This policy was last reviewed August 1992 and included on this policy cycle by the board. The updates formalize the superintendent's authority and how the district would handle schedule disruptions. Any feedback on that?
I mean, I think the policy is, I think probably the reason this was brought up was there was concern about who's responsible for basically setting the essential parameters of the school day. And I looked into it, and the school code says the board is, so we don't determine the schedule of classes, but by the school code, we do determine the start and end times and the intermissions, such as lunch and recess. And so I think this policy as written is fine because it says the board shall establish the times of the daily sessions of district schools. And I think we're just going to make sure that that is something that's being brought to the board.
If there's any changes?
Yeah, well, and really probably just regardless that it's brought to us in the spring, that here's what we're going to do next year. These are going to be the lunch times. These are going to be we're going to start at this time in this school. Lunch and recess is going to be this.
Was this one brought to the attention of the board because of the issue earlier on this year with the inconsistency of scheduling in elementary schools for their lunch program?
Yeah, I think there were
so, yeah.
concerns around the times chosen and the inconsistencies from one school to the next. And so I think this is something where parents would appreciate, and the law actually requires that we take a look at it.
And that was settled.
Yeah. No, it was, I believe there was a good resolution to that, but,
And also, the last time this was updated was 1992.
I think that's my guess as to why it's here. I don't even think we called upon it, knowing
okay.
the focus really around this is who makes snow days.
Right. And
Delays
I
and
don't-
that type of
I don't
thing.
want to do that, so.
Yeah, I
you
thought-
can keep doing that.
It's all hours based instead of days based. Anyway,
But the schedule, elementary, middle, high, will be in the handbooks. Little asterisk for you, so you know to take a look at it as you approve them in the spring.
Okay. And then our last policy is 246 for school wellness. This policy is required to be reviewed tri-annually, and no changes are recommended to this policy. All right. Anything else on any of our policies? All right. Moving on to item 3.02, other items of business, I have none. New business, I have none. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So motion?
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any nays or abstentions? That motion carries, and we are adjourned.